Hey guys, my name's James. I've noticed a bit of a hurdle with getting into motorsport here in Australia, and as someone who's been involved in motorsport in Australia for a little while, I thought I might be able to assist a few people here through my YouTube channel, Stage 1 Garage. Through this channel, if I inspire one person to get out there and give it a crack at the local club level, then that's just a huge win, honestly. Bit of background on me. I started racing in motorsport here in Australia back in 2011 through the local karting scene. I started in juniors at about age 13 with a KT100J. Did okay at club level. We won a few things locally, but when it came to state titles, national titles, we didn't have a whole lot of great success. In 2016, 2015, I think it was actually, we moved into the Australian Pulsar Racing Series. In 2016, I sort of found a bit of a footing there with some reasonable results, getting a few podiums, a few pole positions. The elusive win we never found though, and since then though we've kind of moved on and we've been racing in the Australian Production Car Championship for the last few years, where I've had the opportunity to race in a couple of Bathurst 6 hour events. We've gotten a class podium there in the past as well, but to be honest, most of our fun times have been had at a local sort of club level, just hanging out with mates, like basic stuff like that. Get out, do some hill climbs, do some rally sprints, carnicrosses, things like that, where you can just hang out, relax, and just enjoy everything, honestly. Over the years, I've hit up a lot of mates, sort of come out and have a bit of fun with us at local events, but the perception's always been that it's way too costly and difficult to get into any form of motorsport here in Australia. Now, I'm not here to tell you that it's cheap, but I've seen so many different ways that people can get into the sport, and with the huge range of budgets from top dollar teams back to your grassroots level that sort of just get out, spend a few $100 here there just to enjoy yourself. Um, and honestly, I think through this channel we should be able to run through, see how you might be able to get into motorsport for a reasonable amount of money, have a blast doing it with a few mates, and get to the point that you're reasonably competitive as well. But firstly, we need to determine what sort of motorsport are you really wanting to get into. Is it tarmac based, dirt based? Is it off road based? At that point, we sort of need to start delving into where can we start with licensing, club memberships. Where can we go and race? What's in your local area? We need to have a look at our clubs. We need to see what sort of events they're running. But fortunately, here in Australia, a lot of the clubs have a bit of cross pollination with how they actually operate themselves. So some of the clubs operate purely on tar, some operate purely on dirt, but a lot of the smaller clubs operate on both. So they might be doing a dirt carnicross or a dirt motorcarna, but then they also might in a couple of months have a tarmac motorcarna or a tarmac carnicross. Prime example, North Shore Sporting Car Club. I know that they do some dirt events. They run rally. They also run tarmac rally sprints. They also do dirt carnicrosses, things like that. Another prime example is Bathurst Light Car Club. They do tarmac-based hill climbs, super sprints. They also compete on dirt doing motorcarna and carnicross events at their quarry venue as well. Personally, as a good starting point getting into motorsport, one of the first places I'd look is the Motorsport Australia website. Just to check out the event calendar. That gives you an idea what sort of clubs are in your area. There's also a club finder on there. Unfortunately, it doesn't sort of show you where physically the clubs are, so that might take a little bit of Googling and things like that. But as you can see on the calendar here, there's a filter that you can use on the left hand side. It's a little bit of a tricky one to get your head around, but one of the main things that you're sort of looking at are carnicross, motorcarna, hill climbs, super sprints, and auto tests. That's probably the grassroots starting point before you get into door-to-door racing, and that's honestly the most cost-effective way to sort of start before you have to invest big money into your cars to put roll cages in for door-to-door and things like that. Another great spot to look for events is once you've sort of narrowed down which clubs are in your area, definitely jump on their website, check out their calendars on there because they tend to be really up to date with what they're doing at any given time. They'll be covering every single event that they've got, and a lot of these clubs actually have sister clubs that they're working with at the same time, and they might have their events also on there for that particular club to travel to that venue to conduct a carnicross event and things like that. When it comes to licenses here in Australia, there's a few different tiers depending on what sort of events you're planning on doing. But in general, you can start doing events from age 12, competing in some of the higher speed events from age 14 through the speed license. Before you apply, though, one of the first things you need to do is you definitely need to find your local club, it's probably worth having a chat to them. Just go to one of their events just as a spectator, have a chat to them about how they recommend getting involved as well. But before you apply for a license, you need to become a member of a club. So depending on the club, that can vary price wise. It can be from $20 for a junior in the club. Um, it, it can be a little bit higher. It just depends on the club and what they sort of offer. Or for a senior, like us adults, sort of $85 and beyond. Again, can be a little bit cheaper, can be a little bit dearer, depending on the club. Now, some of them, they spec their membership so that they basically run from, say, your 20th of January through to the 20th of January the following year. Other clubs, they basically operate from 1st of January to 31st of December. So if you're applying through mid-year, you may not get as much value for money. But at the end of the day, that's something to sort of bear in mind if you're applying for that club. Is that something that's important to you? Is it not something that's important to you? Especially if it's one of your local clubs, it's definitely good to get out there and actually support them. So, but once you've got your club membership, that's when you can start looking at your licenses and jump on the Motorsport Australia website. This will be linked in the description, and you definitely need to just have a look at the different sort of licensing forms and whatnot, because that explains exactly what you can do at what age, things like that. But the main tiers of licenses are, well, for juniors, you've got the non-speed junior license, which allows someone between the ages of 12 and 17 to compete in motorcar, carnacross, observe section trials, touring road events, and other non-timed road events. These could be simply like a spotting rally, things like that, which is something that, say, the adult in the car will drive, and then the younger fella can basically sit there and go, yep, we spotted this, that sort of thing. Then you've also got your speed junior license. So at this point, this is where we're starting to sort of step up. This is where you need to be over the age of 14 to get this license. But it's targeted at juniors between the age of 14 and 17 to compete in events that are a bit faster. So this license will allow you to compete in all the same events that a non-speed junior license will allow. Plus, you get the addition of being able to compete in drifting, hill climbs, sprints, and super sprints, as well as Type 1 rallycross and rally sprints and regularity trials. So for both these licenses for juniors, it's only a $40 fee for the year, plus obviously a club membership. Unfortunately for us adults, though, it's a little bit dearer, with license tiers being the speed license, which is pretty well the same as the junior license, except a bit dearer, and for obviously adults. With the speed license, again, you get to compete in motorcar, carnacross, observe section trials, touring road events, touring assemblies, drifting, hill climbs, super sprints and sprints, Type 1 rallycross and rally sprint, and regularity trials. After that point, though, it kind of steps up into the license tiers that you require for door-to-door racing. At that point, that's where you have to go, and you require it for the door-to-door tarmac circuit racing, such as XLs, Pulsars, and even stuff like Trans Am, production cars, that sort of thing. To get this license, you need to have an observed license test, or if you've had a speed license in the past and completed in 5 super sprints or regularity events within the previous 2 years, Motorsport Australia will actually waive the OLT for that, because you have evidence to the fact that you've actually been in the car and working with Motorsport Australia and participating in events. With this, you also need to get a medical, which, depending on your age, might be required to be completed every few years. When you're younger, they have a longer timeline on it, so you might not have to do it for 10 or so years, unless you have a medical episode or something like that that requires a doctor to basically sign off on it. And the costs associated with the circuit license are quite a bit dearer, at $566 per year, plus your club membership. So that kind of covers your circuit racing until you reach an international level, where the licensing kind of changes depending on what sort of events you do. But we won't go into that because it's not really applicable for what we're looking at. Now, if you're looking at rally on the dirt and whatnot, even tarmac rally, some of the higher end tarmac rallies require a rally license, and again, it's a next step up from the speed license, but on dirt. So it'll allow you to compete in dirt rally events from age 16. It comes at a cost of $342 for the year. And if you're wanting to be a rally junior, you can also gain the license from 14 and co-drive as a junior in these events. I believe you can also drive too, for only $72 for the year plus your club membership. However, again, like your circuit license, you require a medical to actually pass that, and again, it depends on how old you are and if you've had any medical issues as to whether you might have to complete it more regularly. Then thirdly, you've got your off-road license. Now, personally, I haven't had a whole lot to do with off-road, but I believe this is to do with the trophy trucks, side-by-sides and things like that that you might be encountering, like in your Fink Desert Race and things like that. It's $324 for a year for an adult, or $72 for a junior. Medical's required, but again, that license you can basically submit that you're going to be a driver or a co-driver. Um, it looks pretty similar on paper to the rally license. Again, it just depends on what sort of events you're wanting to complete in. So now, now that you've figured out exactly what you're kind of wanting to do, you basically need to get onto the Motorsport Australia website. We just need to download the licensing form. Again, I'll link that in the description as to where you're going to find those forms, and just fill it out as to what you need. At that point, you need your local doctor to complete your medical. Um, Once that's all signed off on and you've got your club membership details and filled out that form, you simply just flick it through to Motorsport Australia via email as a scanned copy, and then just wait a week or so, and you'll hear back about your license status, whether it's approved or whatnot. You've paid your money, and then at that point, you're pretty well good to rock and roll, and we can sort of start organising to look at what events you're going to compete in. That's when the calendar really sort of starts to become a bit exciting, because you can decide how we're going to do it. Um, Now, in the next video, I'll be checking out a couple of the car clubs in New South Wales as to what events they have coming up, and we'll also determine which events we can compete in with a speed licence, because that's kind of the softest entry to motorsport here in Australia, cost-wise and sort of ease of access-wise. We'll also be looking at what safety gear we require, and there's something we need to do to our car. So there's a few requirements for each event as to stickers and things like that regarding like where your battery's situated, um, if you have a battery isolator, tow points, things like that. So not every event is identical. The subregs will dictate that, as well as the Motorsport Australia regulations. Then we're going to sort of go into some of the pros and cons about whether you use your daily driver for these sort of events, or whether you buy something nice and cheap to compete in that you don't sort of care about as much as your daily driver. And if something happens to it, like you've driven it to the event, if something happens, you can always just get a mate to tow it home, or organise a towee to do the same thing. And then at that point, you can still get to work on Monday without a drama, and you can sort of organise to fix a car in your own time. But we'll sort of dive into that next video. Thanks for running through this with me, guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to just comment, and I'll do my best to answer them. And hopefully this sort of helps with how to get into it. It's not as big of a hurdle as people think. Everyone can do it, really.